Okay, you're all set, Your Worship.
Okay, thanks, Troy. I'd like to call the regular council meeting for the town of Grand Bay-Westfield on Monday, January 24th, 2022 to order at 7:02 p.m. We respectfully acknowledge that Grand Bay-Westfield exists on the traditional Woolastook land. The lands of Wabanaki people are recognized in a series of peace and friendship treaties to establish an ongoing relationship of peace, friendship, and mutual respect between equal nations. The river that runs by our town is known as Woolastook, along which live Woolastook-Wig, the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. We, the staff and elected representatives, pay respect to the elders, past and present, and descendants of this land. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us virtually if you're online with us. Tonight is an important night for our town as we have before council a presentation on our local economic development action plan. Growth and development is a clear mandate we were given by the community, and this plan is one of the ways council plans to execute on that mandate. Local business is important. We need to encourage new business to establish here, and we also need to provide a welcoming and supportive space for the people already doing business in our town. 85% of businesses are self-employed businesses or small businesses in Grand Bay-Westfield. That is a big number. One of these businesses, Grand Bay Home Hardware, has been a single family-owned enterprise here in our town for an incredible 43 years. Started by Donnie Miles all those years ago, the business has continued and grown under his stewardship over the decades, supported by Donnie's wife Shirley and son John Jarvis. Grand Bay Home Hardware has been a community leader for as long as they've been around, supporting our sports teams, community projects, schools, and more. During the 2 historic floods we experienced recently, John Jarvis was right beside me, filling, loading, and delivering sandbags hour after hour, day after day. Not just with his own hands, but also donating the use of home hardware staff and equipment and trucks to get the job done for his neighbors. Donnie Miles and his family have also contributed immeasurably to the economy of our town in many ways. Grand Bay Home Hardware has employed hundreds of people over the years, including my own son. The loyalty and community spirit shown over the years by Donnie and his family is something special, and I know our town appreciates that very much. It isn't every business owner that answers an emergency text at 4:30 a.m. by a desperate homeowner looking for a sump pump for a flooding basement in the middle of a storm, then meets that homeowner at the store by 5 a.m. and then says, just take it and pay when you're done dealing with your emergency. That homeowner was me, and I know I'm not the only one with a story like that. After 43 years, Home Hardware is changing hands, and I would like to take this time to offer a huge thank you and best wishes in recognition for everything that the Miles family has done for our town. Thank you, Donnie. Thank you, Shirley, and thank you, John. We appreciate your clearly evident love and loyalty to the people of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield, and we wish you the best in the next chapter of your journey. Item 4, record of attendance. Let the record reflect that all of council is in attendance this evening. Item 5, agenda approval. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield approve the agenda of January 24th, 2022 as presented. May I have a motion, please? I see one from Councillor Day. Thank you very much. May I have a second? Thank you from Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 6, disclosure of conflict of interest. Is there any? There being none, we'll move on to item 7, public hearings, presentations, delegations, petitions. And item 7A is the EBP, Local Economic Development Plan. And we have Chris Steele from EBP here with us this evening to present the plan. Chris, the floor is yours. We're looking forward to it. Oh, you're on mute, Chris.
Your Worship, thank you very much, and I apologize for, it seems that even after 2 years, that muting problem still seems to happen on a fairly regular basis. I thank you very much for having me here this evening, and it has been a pleasure and an honor to work with the town of Grand Bay-Westfield these past few months. It's been lovely getting to know the community. I am looking forward to my next opportunity to actually come up and to visit once again, and to be able to really enjoy your company in person. It is a lovely and warm community, and I think that many of the strategies that we have come up for the town really kind of come from the strengths that have been shown to us, with a fair deal of realism with what the region has as both opportunities and as constraints, and of course working within the constraints of resources that are available to the town. So with that, if I may I go ahead and share my screen to run through a quick PowerPoint?
Yes, please, Chris.
Very good. Excellent. Can everybody see my screen at this point?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, what I'd like to do is just very briefly step you through the work that we at EBP performed, I and my team, as well as talk about some of the things that we learned in conversations with some of the stakeholders around the town, and then talk a little bit about the data that we reviewed. And actually, Your Worship, you already referenced some of it in your opening remarks, so I appreciate the preview. And then talk a little bit about recommendations and action plan. One of the things I do want to point out is I've already been working with John Inswind to talk through some of how the action plan might turn into further recommendations for actions. And as I have expressed to him on multiple occasions, we stand by to be able to back up our work that we have performed to this point, and to ensure that the town of Grand Bay-Westfield is successful as it moves into implementation and execution. So the work that was performed over the past several months includes at least 3 major activities. A literature review. The town of Grand Bay-Westfield has done quite a bit of work over the past really several years on better understanding what its strengths are, what the basic changes and dynamics have been, as well as there have been multiple plans that have been prepared that appear around the edges of economic development. We had the benefit of being able to review and absorb the information that was presented in each of these, and to the extent that it was appropriate and available, we used such as a foundation for our further work on top of that. Data analyses. We also examined data that related to labor force composition, as well as information on the kinds of business institutions that were already present in the town, and provided some more context on the ecosystem that already exists. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, interviews. We spoke to a series of individuals that either ran businesses or had been other forms of stakeholders in the town, to get their perspective on what it was like to operate, what they saw as the opportunities, as well as the constraints and items that would need to be overcome in order for the town to fully successfully achieve its potential. The plan that has resulted is based on the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges that the town faces, and again provides a very reasonable and reasoned approach towards economic growth for the town. And of course, I'm going to make my one little push here is that this is not a one-time effort. The work that we are proposing needs to be examined on a regular basis, and the things that are working needs to be doubled down and reinforced, and the things that are not working need to be examined as to understand why. This will be a growing process, and it will be one that, if it has the sustained backing of the town, is certain to provide the positive results expected. I'm going to go through a little bit of the summary of some of the statements that we heard in our conversations with some of the stakeholders around the town. This is not the exhaustive list, but it is several of the points that we wanted to kind of bring out as laying some of the context for our recommendations. Some of the comments were about real estate and development most broadly, where the city seems to have a difficulty in using both as residential and commercial properties, the ones that have been made available for development. There has been some discussion with regards to taxes and fees and how these might be addressed in the going forward. However, that is still a conversation that is in process. The town doesn't necessarily have some of the infrastructure necessary to attract businesses and entrepreneurs in some locations, as well as there has been not enough awareness building towards some of the development properties, particularly around Colonel Nays Boulevard. There was also some discussion about the waterfront and how it is so much more appealing than in some of the other communities in the general St. John region. However, it is not necessarily as promoted as such. In terms of the retail market, the businesses and entrepreneurs that are currently located in the town seem to find it difficult, or at least express a difficulty in attracting business from local residents. Part of this is because of a dichotomy of both a benefit and a drawback, and that, of course, is the proximity to the city of St. John. Employers are already in St. John, so residents tend to have their retail mindset around the city. So there is a challenge to be able to raise the profile of those businesses that are already here in Grand Bay-Westfield, not only to, of course, make them appeal or keep them on the minds of residents of the town, but also to raise their profile throughout the region more broadly. Also, there is a perception that the town does not necessarily have the amenities that surrounding communities do, such as Quispam or Rothsay. There is an identity and atmosphere which is both appealing and may also be something of a mindset challenge as well. The town, of course, is historically known as Cottage County and country, and it has a feel that is not unlike location that's not that far from here in rural Maine. Given the atmosphere in the town, entry-level home prices are low, which means it should be appealing to working class families coming in from outside. It also does tend to limit improvements to some of the older housing stock, and it doesn't necessarily create any sort of the density that might be required for some additional transportation. There's also a perception of a physical split in the town, with old housing stock on one side and new housing across each other. There should be a way to leverage and to bridge the charming charisma of cottage country and what comes next. There was also a perception expressed to us that an older population would like to keep things the way that they are very comfortable with how the feel and the flow of the community is now, and may feel some concern about what comes next and how that might affect their understanding of what Grand Bay-Westfield is. In terms of business support, some of the folks that we spoke to from the small business and the general business consulting community felt a little bit of a mix with regards to their experience in working with the town. Some local businesses and entrepreneurs had great experiences in working with the town, and others had a little bit more of a mixed experience. There was a note that general support for entrepreneurial businesses is a little bit lacking. There was not necessarily a feeling that there were local supports that were ready to go to either help in terms of helping to figure out how to start a business, or indeed how to grow it in terms of advice and guidance and mentoring. So I mentioned also that we had done some extensive business data analysis to better understand a little bit more about the local workforce, the local business environment and population. And this starts to show a little bit about where some of the natural opportunities are, and each one of these forms a foundation that can actually be built on further on into the future as well. The business distribution is quite fascinating if you take a look at it, in terms of there being expertise in the town currently in construction, finance and insurance, real estate, rental and leasing, professional, scientific, and technical services. It is a diverse pool of expertise that is all locally present within the town of Grand Bay-Westfield. However, as your worship noted earlier in the session, quite a few of these businesses are single person entities and or very, very small businesses, such that over 3/4 of them, really more on the order of about 4 out of 5, have either no employees or one employee past the owner themselves. So it is a community of entrepreneurs. It is a community of solo practitioners, but it also means that it is a community of businesses that can move quite nimbly and are really quite adaptable to change. So if you take a look at that same data and filter it by single person entities or single person businesses, the data tends to show this, where once again we have a very high concentration in real estate rental and leasing, brokers and the like, finance and insurance, so financial advisors, construction, which is specialty construction and trades, professional scientific and technical services and other services and retail trade. The news to be taken from this, even though we are pointing to a very strong, if you will, a small business environment, is that there is still a breadth of talent here. And it is mutually supporting talent. So it points to a very strong local ecosystem that could be capitalized. The town already has a strong distribution of businesses across a variety of industries and talents. Each of these likely already serves a market that is well beyond the town, which really points to Grand Bay-Westfield as a possible nexus for a base of operations for folks that have a market that spans well beyond the town and perhaps the region itself. And this implies that this unique population can be directly engaged, both in terms of growing their own businesses, but also their expertise can be used to support further growth within the town. So, as we think about it from a general kind of strengths and weaknesses perspective, the strengths, of course, are the proximity to opportunities in Greater St. John, high share of talents across a pretty strong breadth of talent base, land development opportunities across the town that have been made available. Of course, the corresponding weaknesses are the lack of a business attraction presence or support, and a little bit of a talent gap in some of the growing sectors. Opportunities, of course, are to grow the profile of the town in terms of tourism, in terms of retail, and in terms of other forms of activity, to be able to capitalize on the perspective and the culture, the identity of the town as cottage country, and being very accessible. And then, of course, business support environment to attract businesses and support them as they grow. Threats, of course, could be the continuing plague that we are all going through here and what that may mean for overall costs and inflation and disruption to general life. And then, of course, the overall threat of a continued perception of not necessarily having a business support environment that will fully help the town achieve its goals. In thinking through this, we wanted to put together an action plan that was tangible, that was achievable, and that responded to what we saw as the most immediate needs that the town is facing. All of these fall within the realm of the achievable within the next several years, and all of which will provide a foundation for further growth within the town. And we've split this out into three major categories: business support, placemaking and branding, and development support. Within the business support section, we have four main areas of concentration. Establishing some form of a networking organization that can help local businesses to better understand the operating environment, to be able to learn from each other, to be able to find ways to collaborate and to be able to grow each other's businesses. This really does seem to be a fairly immediate and relatively directly served need. So we do recommend the establishment of a networking organization within the next year. Hand in hand with that may be some form of a support program that the town can put together to help business owners better understand the resources and services that are both necessary and available both within the town of Grand Bay-Westfield and also within the Greater St. John area. It can both directly align with and perhaps support, and at least at the beginning to help coordinate until the private sector perhaps might take advantage and continue to run the networking organization from there. Web presence. I'm going to use the words web presence in another section of this plan in a different context. But within this context, it is really important that business owners and potential entrepreneurs have a way of finding very simply and very directly the information that they require on how to establish and run a business, which would include, of course, the available resources and services, perhaps point to the two different entities that I was just describing before, and to really provide people with a guidebook on how to do things. And then, of course, direct outreach. one of the things that we did hear from the businesses is that they do feel, that they're doing okay, but they would really appreciate the town understanding a little bit more about what they do, and to be able to have a forum where they can, talk about the things that are working well, the things they'd like to celebrate, the things that could work better. So to the extent that the town can go ahead and start to reach out to existing small businesses in a business retention and expansion type fashion, and to do so on an ongoing way, they'll be able to understand and ensure that those businesses feel that they have a voice within Town Hall. Placemaking and branding. As I had mentioned before, one of the challenges that the businesses, particularly the retail businesses that are present in the town, currently feel is that they feel somewhat invisible and are not necessarily seen or known, or the local residents are not necessarily aware of their presence. So the first two items here actually build on some marketing work that had already been done by the town a couple of years ago, and suggest ways that it can be taken to its next level, and to be able to actually start to move this towards a bit of a marketing plan itself for the town. And of course, the businesses and institutions within the town are an integral part of that marketing. Web presence. Here again, it is important that the town actually is able to portray itself not just as the place to live, but also as a place where businesses are already in place, and to be able to provide a forum where some of those can make their presence known. The last idea that we had, as slightly a little bit out as resources become available, was perhaps the establishment of a thematic map. I'm sure that several of you will have been familiar with this kind of a map as it is seen as you go and either go into local small towns, or even as you go and travel around. But a simple thematic map that might be available in town hall or even in the small businesses themselves, that identifies the businesses in town, where they are and what they serve, very often actually sponsored by those small businesses themselves, is a fantastic way to be able to create a little bit more of awareness of the businesses that are here, and also to reinforce the feeling of the culture of the town. And then lastly, development support. Even though I've put this last, there is some portion of readiness that I think needs to be in place before, other forms of outreach to try and bring in other development. So as I had mentioned before, the incentive and fee evaluation side of things I think needs to be addressed. As I understand it, there have been conversations already within council to address, at least in temporary or in permanent fashion, any of the fees that might be blocking some of the development. One of the other thoughts, I'm going to skip to the bottom for a moment here, is that landowners themselves need to be perhaps brought into the fold to better understand what their expectations are, and also to share with them some of the information that we have developed either as part of this project or as some of the other work that the town has done, so that a realistic expectation of what can be developed, and also how to achieve that, so that all the parties are able to get to a satisfactory outcome, is achieved. And then lastly, as those are addressed, an opportunity brochure, of course, would make a fantastic addition. We're not necessarily suggesting a printed brochure so much as an online resource that potential developers, landlords, real estate developers, and folks that may be looking to develop for their own purposes can better understand not only the attributes of the town, but the process that is required to go ahead and either acquire and or develop land. All of these have been laid out in further detail in a plan that has been made available to council and to the town. And with that, I would love to open this up for conversation.
Thank you, Chris. That was great. I'm very excited about the plan and the steps, especially the ones that we can action almost immediately and move things forward. Council, if you have any questions for Chris, I'll go. Just put your hand up or put up the little hand icon, and I'll go by order of when I see them. We have any questions for Chris at all? Chris, I think I see Deputy Mayor Toole.
Hi, Chris. Sorry, I had the same mute issue that you did. I apologize.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. I don't know if I have so much of a question, but just maybe a little note. What I like is the plan. It is exciting. I agree. And I had it was an eye-opening experience for me when you first presented it to us about the number of small, one single person or couple employee businesses that are here. I think it's probably a much more robust business community in Grand Bay-Westfield than most people realize. So I like how a lot of your plan is bringing that to the forefront so people can see what's out there. So I was noting I really like the mix of both serving those businesses that are already here and trying to meet their needs and add to their experience, and also the side of attracting new businesses in. So that's one thing I thought was great. And another thing that I liked is that I think your plan really respects what people have always said, what I've heard. I think all the councilors around the table have heard too from people in this community is they love the cottage town. They don't want to be Christmas. They don't want to be like it's that sort of stuff. But we do recognize we do need development. So I really like how this plan is that we want to develop and grow the town, but not change the town, but grow it and be more successful and bring more people in, grow the population, but in a way that really suits us. So I really quite like this, and I'm excited by it. I think there's a lot of when I first saw it, I was a bit taken aback. I wasn't sure about the focus on smaller, only one or two, what can we do? But it's all coming together and I really like it. And I guess maybe I do have a question pulling out of my rambling, but with the web presence that you had on there, that's kind of where, is that something I think is one of the main features, of like a key piece? I think that's something that can service people both who are already here and outside, but I noticed that's a bit of time out. It's not an immediate 6 months. I think it's 1 or 2 years, but I assume that would be like a key piece of any type of development plan.
Through your worship to Deputy Mayor Toole, I think that is accurate. One of the things that is really important is that there is a bit of homework that the town needs to do in terms of having some of those support structures in place before some of the work ends up going on the website, or really towards any sort of outward communication. It's very doable. It is very reasonable, but it does need to be done before that outreach is done.
Perfect. Thank you. And thanks again. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor McIntosh Lawrence.
Yeah, hi Chris. Thank you for that. Yeah, it was very interesting, very in-depth, and I agree with Deputy Mayor Toole, all her points, and I don't really have a question either. I would just like to say that I was excited to read this and hear you present and get this underway, and as someone who has recently purchased a commercial property in Grand Bay, I'm excited to access this document and work through it, and because I know nothing about business, but I really would love to start something in Grand Bay, and so I'm really looking forward to working through this and getting my feet wet and hopefully opening something in the near future. So thank you.
Thank you.
I see Councillor Balcom's hand is up.
Thank you, Your Worship. Hello, Chris. How are you?
Doing well.
Great. I don't have a question. You've answered and presented very succinctly. Just some comments, and I'm going to mention this primarily for the audience, who hopefully hundreds are watching online, seeing that we can't meet in person. The model of economic development that Grand Bay-Westfield and surrounding area have chosen is a regional approach, and we are members of Envision St. John. They're the ones who cast the big net for finding, going around the world to find opportunities. It's a partnership. They're experts at that, but the partnership that we have with Envision St. John, besides paying our quarterly amount, is we have to provide them with up-to-date information and tools about Grand Bay-Westfield, what we are seeking, what kind of a community we want to be, what we believe our competitive advantages and our value proposition are. And that has been missing. And what you have presented us tonight is a verification of what the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats are for our town, our wonderful town. and also an action plan on what items need to be done and in what timeline. And from a business support perspective, you're absolutely right. We used to have an organization here called the Chamber of Commerce, and things have a way of cycling. 5 years ago, approximately, it joined the former Board of Trade and created the new Greater St. John Chamber of Commerce. So we have lost that entity. Place marketing and branding, you're absolutely right. We have to decide as a council our go forward and how we are going to give the tools and present that information to our friends at Envision St. John to help us market. When they bring somebody in on short notice from another country, and it will be on short notice, we have to have people on the ground ready to meet them in Vision St. John at the airport. And if we find out that they like boating or whatever, we have to get to know people. They need to get to know the town before they can even understand if there's a business opportunity. So, and development support council, I think, has made a first good step, hopefully, in eliminating the frontage fee, which has been a real and more importantly, a perceived development block for the last 10 years in our town. So congratulations on a very good product and a go-forward flight plan. I used to be an air traffic controller, so I'm familiar with flight plans and step-by-step. Of notice that was very striking, I'd just like to mention, is that 25 years ago, there was a regional economic development plan done from Sussex to St. Stephen before a lot of amalgamation of our towns and villages. And it's so ironic. I have a copy of it. I was involved in that at the time, and I looked at a copy of it recently. The greatest opportunity for the village of Westfield and the former town of Grand Bay 25 years ago was the growth of home-based business. And I would submit to you that organically, we have the two entities now, Grand Bay-Westfield, with 85% of our businesses working from home or small businesses of less than 4 employees. That just happened on its own. I'm chair of the Population Growth Committee along with Councillor Bailmans. I am convinced that Envision St. John will grasp our desire for being a cottage country and to continue to grow our population and growth by talking to those 85% of the businesses and getting them to tell other prospective businesses what a wonderful way of life it is here, not only to live, but to work from home. So the other striking point that I'd like to mention is, of that business base of 85%, it's wonderful that construction, finance, real estate, rental, and leasing, they're all fine folks. They live right here in Grand Bay. The combination of those types of industries are very well positioned to help develop some housing stock here such that we can be ready when Envision St. John brings some medical community people to the university or whatever, and they're looking for a place to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. We have any other questions or comments from Council for Chris? No? I just want to take a second and again, thank you, Chris, for the fine work, the alignment of this plan with our strategic plan and the alignment with the pillars of Envision St. John. It meshes together beautifully, and it's something that we can action and focus on and develop the town in a really intentional, thoughtful way going forward. So thank you again for your work and your offer to be available to us as we work through the action plan. So thank you very much, Chris.
It is absolutely my pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon.
Okay, thank you. So the motion on the table is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield receive and file the information as presented. May I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Day. May I have a second? Deputy Mayor Tools, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. We're on to item 8, minutes of previous meeting. 8A, regular council meeting minutes of January 10th, 2022, that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of January 10th, 2022 as presented. May I have a motion, please? Deputy Mayor.
Moved.
Thank you. May I have a second? Thank you. Councillor McIntosh Lawrence, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. 8B, email poll CAO bonus. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield ratify the email poll CAO bonus. May I have a motion? Councillor Balcom, thank you. May I have a second? Councillor Day, thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Item 9, unfinished business, Westfield school zone speed limit. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield agree to leave the current speed reduction in the school zone of in front of the Westfield School. May I have a motion, please? You, Deputy Mayor Toole. May I have a second? Councillor Balcom, thank you. Do you have any questions or comments on the motion? In here. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion?
I just have a quick comment, Your Worship.
Yes.
I'm just really pleased with this, that it came back, and I was really happy that the school was so responsive in providing the information that was requested. I know the principal, I believe, went out to the PSSC and parents and really sought some input. So I'm much more comfortable with this. I think the whole council was kind of wondering why we would drop something if there was no need to drop it. I know there's not a concern there, but there's a concern that might arise. So I was happy with the information gathering, and I want to thank the staff at Westfield School and our staff as well at the town for looking into this and getting back to council with the information.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Any other questions or comments on the motion? I just want to echo Deputy Mayor Toole's comments. I want to thank Louise Johnson, the principal of Westfield School, for going the extra mile to poll her staff, PSSC, parents, and get back to us with their comments and their concerns. And I'm fully in favor of leaving the speed limit the way it is. We all know kids. They're the slower the vehicles are in order to respond to maybe an unpredictable behavior by a younger child, the better. I want to thank staff too for taking this item back and doing the work on it. So do we have any other further questions or comments? All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 9B, snow removal and ice control. This is the motion that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield authorize administration to adopt the snow and ice plan 2023 to 2028 as presented and prepare the tender for snow and ice control services for the 2023-2028 winter seasons with the following levels of service. The plowing depth is to remain at 8 centimeters on local streets. Plowing depth for municipal properties in use during a storm event is to be 4 centimeters. Change in the description of the service level on sidewalks and to clarify that sidewalks servicing the storm events should not be considered safe until after the storm has stopped. This service level also applies during a storm event on a school day. I will get motions, and I believe our Works Commissioner has a report on that, and then I'll open it for questions and comments.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Day. I have a second. Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. I believe we have Bruce Galt, our Works Commissioner, online to present a report to us on the snow and ice control plan for 2023-2028.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a presentation. I'm going to try to share my screen. Give me a second. Alrighty. Okay. Yes. I guess just an overview of our proposed changes, and for the recommendation for snow and ice control plan for the 2023-2028 season. I guess before I get going, can everybody hear me and see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent.
Never hot.
Are they ever good?
My beans or the queen?
Oh, yeah. Okay, Bruce,
I know. I'm trying to change the slide.
oh,
I'm pressing buttons. There we go.
there we are.
Okay, so as part of the plan, again, going out as we were able to contact the residents, and we got a great feedback, over 125 emails and phone messages regarding the proposed changes to our priority 3 streets. So that was good. A lot of engagement there. And again, the overwhelming consensus was not to raise the depth from 8 to 10 centimeters from the current 8 centimeters. And a lot of the replies, the 125, a lot of them dealt with the plan, but they also dealt with operational issues. To say, for example, the road wasn't widened far enough. That's not necessarily a plan issue. That's an operational issue. But the feedback was good, and that'll be part of the information that we use when we design our upcoming tender for the next contractor, is to get into the operational issues over and above the plan issues. Okay, and again with the plan, as we've had this since, or a snow and ice plan since 2003, and here's the objective and the mission statement, and I think they're fairly concise, so I'm just going to read them. So the objective is to provide an effective, efficient, environmentally friendly, and financially responsible level of service. Oh, my window's over there. For snow and ice control in the town of Bay-Westfield, and to ensure that this level of service is well understood and accepted by all stakeholders, council, member staff, snow control contractor, employees, and the public. So that is the objective of the town, and the mission to do that is to provide a consistent and adequate level of snow and ice control in the town of Bay-Westfield, while ensuring road salts and sands are applied at the right time, in the right place, with the right amounts to protect the environment, motorists, and pedestrians. So that's our goal. Now to I guess implement that goal is we have various street priorities of 3. Priority 1s, which is our arterial and heavy travel collectors, River Valley Drive, Narrapus Road. Priority 2s are our collectors and heavily traveled local streets, for example, Allen Street, Longwood Drive, Epworth Park Road, Pamelanak Road. And then priority 3s, which are typically our low traffic collectors. And examples there would be Sandalwood Crescent and Westfield Crescent. And that was the priority 3 streets in which it was originally proposed that the service level would be lowered to 8, but there's a recommendation at the end, and the consensus was to leave that at the current 8. And I guess on these priority streets, just going through, I'm just kind of dealing with the highlights. The plan is long, but where your street is, whether it's ranked a priority 1, 2, or 3, is part of the appendices. There's a lot of administrative sections in the snow and ice plan. I'm not going to discuss those now. I'm just getting into the plan and the actual service level. Those are like administrative functions, going through. So they're not discussed during this presentation, but they are on the plan, which is available on the website if anybody would like to go get. Now again, with the plan is we have 2 people providing services. One is the contractor, I guess we refer to the contractor that looks after the municipal streets. And then the other is the town itself. We look after a portion of our sidewalks and municipal properties. So we, I guess as the works department, we'll say, we have our own priorities as to which we look after during a storm event. So again, priority 1s, those are, again, the examples there is Fire Station 1 and Fire Station 2, and the sidewalk serviced by the municipality during normal work hours. Just a note, I guess sidewalks serviced by the contractor are not serviced until after the storm has concluded. So just for references, the contractor looks after the sidewalks on Colonel Nace and looks after the sidewalks along Narapus Road. So that would be sort of at the end of River Valley Drive where Narapus Road starts. They look after that section of sidewalk. We look after everything along River Valley Drive and Woolastook Drive. Excuse me. And there's also a pathway over on Inglewood that we look after through there. And this is sort of the part for clarification, because I've been, well, over the years we've received calls, but just sort of the understanding is that for clarification, that we're looking to put in the plan is that any sidewalk service during the storm event is temporary and for the purpose of providing additional room for snow storage from the snow plowed off the road. So during the storm event, the sidewalk cannot be fully serviced until the street plow makes its last pass, plowing snow and slush onto the sidewalk. So that's just an understanding that until the storm is over, the sidewalks are not safe. They may be out there, and we are going by with our snow blower and we're taking snow off, but that's to allow the plow to go down the road again and put snow back onto the sidewalk. So to get it off, to open up the drains on the curbs and gutters. But again, just the understanding that if the storm event is still on, sidewalks are not safe. So that's just a matter of putting that in there, which is recommended. And then priority 2 areas, again, municipal properties, priority 2s can kind of change between a priority 1 and a priority 3 to say, for example, if there's like a rental at the River Center, or if something's going on at the Lions Building. Again, at those times, they become a priority 1. And then again, if there's nothing going on there, they move to a priority 3 because they don't need servicing until after the storm event. And again, priority 3s are those that are not expected to be used during the storm event. So that's sort of the two players, being the contractor and the town. And now for the level of services. So this is how it's meant to be applied, is with the contractor doing the roads, is during a storm event is initial application of salt, plow after 4 centimeters, continuously plow, controlled salting for driving lanes, with no further accumulation expected, and then widening after hours. So that's on our priority 1s. So we want to get the salt out there, plow often on those. And again, with the priority 1s, that also includes hills. So, and again, that's the list that's in the appendices as to what's a priority 1. So it's not just the highway, but it's the hills that need to be looked after earlier. So they're ranked on a priority 1, and that's the service level that we're looking to achieve. Priority 2. Again, local collectors, again, the first application of salt. And again, that's to kind of create that layer so the snow doesn't pack to it. And I say that, and again, we just had this storm before, but so with that, the plowing is between 4 and 8 centimeters accumulated, and then repeat to try and hold that during a storm event, and controlled salting. So that's on the priority 2s. So the really change from the 1 is it still gets the salt, but a little more snow accumulation before it's plowed off. And on priority 3 local streets, we plow after 8 centimeters or more accumulation when possible. So we want to repeat plowing, salting, and do curves on that. Just a couple notes on this, or I shouldn't say a couple notes, I guess, in conversations with other municipalities, is that we're trying to hold priority 3, being the local streets, to 8 centimeters. Talking to Quispam, they don't use the 8 centimeter category as their criteria that they're trying to achieve is within 24 hours after the storm. And talking to St. John, they're also trying to achieve, after the storm is over, 24 hours, or they'll continue on and plow into the local streets. So our service level is actually higher because we plow it during a storm event and not wait till after and continue. So we have a high, I guess I'm going to go with, I believe we have a higher level of service in following that. And that's also I guess, a factor that can be applied and looked at when we go to like tender, because we're the only municipality that does the tendering process. Everybody else is in-house, but we're doing it tendering. So that's just a little note on that. And I guess while I'm talking about the other areas, I guess we're also salt. So salt only is the plan. Quispam, or the town of Quispam, the city of St. John are also that. Salt only. And again, subject to with temperatures. If you have really cold temperatures like we've been having -21, if you do the sand salt mix. But Rossay and Hampton there, they use a sand salt mix. But we're salt. So that's just a little bit on the priority 3. And again, that's with the contractor. Service level for the works department being the other part is, again, we're looking after the municipal facilities and the sidewalks. Again, for our parking lots being asphalt service, we're looking for our anti-icing. So we'll put our salt layer down through there, and plowing, again, trying to keep our storm event down to 4 centimeters. And again, that's for the buildings, Fire Station 2. And again, we've added through here is we need to shovel our walkways during the storm event because people have to get from the parking lot to the building. So that's an added thing that we have to do in the works department. Plow continuously and widen. And the same with the sidewalks, which come through, is we'll clear off and salt as soon as reasonably possible after the precipitation has ended. And here's the sort of the key is the contractor has completed snow and ice control on the adjacent street. Priority 2 streets, again, whether it's a priority 1, this is where it sort of comes in that if we know something is happening at a specific time of day, is we'll go over and plow it out. If it's during the storm event, we'll try to make a plow on it, so it's easier, or I should say, better to use at that time. But it's not a final. And then when the storm's over, go over and plow and salt. So if it's storm's still just on, we just plow it, and then if the storm's over, again, we would plow and salt and have it back to conditions. And priority 3, again, these are assets or spots that we have that the town has that we don't need to get to during the storm. So after the storm, then we would go and get to these sites. And then again, as I said, after the storm, here we go, after the storm. Because again, we have all the snow that's out there, we need to look after. One thing here, I guess, in item 2 is the snow and ice removal is the responsibility of the town. Costs and everything through there. So again, if we've had some storms, which we've had some years ago, we've had to bring in contractors to move away from intersections and widen things out. But all that cost is borne by the town. That's at the town's expense. The contractor is responsible for widening. But if you widen and there's your bank, and if it snows again and it needs to be removed, that's something that's the responsibility of the town to look after. And this is where it comes in due to the frequency that we had that, well, I forget how many years ago, but we had that storm like every 3 days it stormed, and then there was no place. But again, the cost to remove that snow with the banks, the intersections, the line of sights, that's something that's borne by the town. And I guess that risk has not been transferred to the contractor, because risk to the contractor would transfer back to the cost for the town. And again, we try to do it during daylight hours. Again, that's for visibility, so everybody can, so we can see the snowbanks and people can see us working on the roads. Keep everybody safe. And with that, we have areas that we try to, again, our goal is, like anything else, is to be safe. So the first areas that we're looking after that where it's considered to be vehicle and pedestrian safety. So again, that would be the line of sight at intersections. So people can't see the roads too narrow, can't get 2 cars to pass, like things like that. That's where our first priority would go through on that. Then we would move into additional storage for the next snowstorm, and then drainage controls and improve facility usage. And again, it isn't the plan described, is that we have 2 snow dump areas. So that if we do have to truck at the snow, is it goes down or up to Highland Road behind the dog park. There's a work site there that the town uses as disposal, so that we do snow disposal up there. And then we also have a site on Inglewood Drive at the ball field. We disposed it on the parking lot for the seniors ball field. Over on that side, we stored the snow there. And tips for the public. again, is more help we can get from them helps everybody and themselves, keep everybody safe. I'm not going to read them all. They are available online and they are in the report. And over the years, every fall, we send these out to the residents to let them know. But I guess one of the important ones, well, they're all important, is number 2, to place your snow markers back at least 4 feet, 1 meter or further off the edge of the asphalt. Because what happens is, and again, you've seen, and I've seen it out there, is that people put their snow marker right to the edge of the asphalt. Well, when the plow goes down, especially the first time in the year, they don't want to plow the snow markers off. So that means that the plow blade is actually still out onto the road asphalt surface. And that's where your bank of snow is. Well, if that freezes, rains, that's where your bank of snow is until going through. And if that happens on the other side as well, the road becomes narrow. Now we have that 4 feet. Well, we have probably 20 feet each side on a regular 66-foot wide road. We probably have another 20 feet on each side of the road for right of way that's available for snow storage. But when people put their snow markers out there, the plows don't want to plow them off the first time through. So again, if people can put those back so we can have room to store the snow on the shoulder and off the asphalt surface, that would be much appreciated. Much appreciated. And again, we send the notice out or flyers out there in the fall so people can hopefully put them out in the correct location. Because again, the other part is if they're on the edge, and although it's not something that people normally consider, but we ran into it with the big storm when we had snow blowers, is if you're trying to widen the road, it's all covered in snow, you're sending your snow blower down and it's chewing into these markers. Because it's all under the snow, you don't see them, and then they get caught, and that causes problems with the snowblower if you want to widen. So if we can get them back, much appreciated. Another tip, and again, just because a lot of times people call me because we do have a traffic bylaw number 80, and it is contrary to the bylaw to place snow onto the street or sidewalk. However, the enforcement of that is under the Motor Vehicle Act, and the Motor Vehicle Act is enforced through the RCMP. So if you see people that are putting snow, like the examples over the years is they plow from the driveway across the way, but there's a big bank they can't get through, it leaves it out onto the road as it goes through, or we've already gone through and plowed the sidewalk, somebody comes by and plows their driveway and it puts a big bank across there. That's an enforcement issue for the RCMP. So that's on that. Parking your vehicles, yes, if you can get those off the road, that would be excellent. Because again, when the plow comes by, he doesn't want to plow into your vehicle, so he has to stay out. And then when you leave, there's a big ridge of snow where the vehicle was. And he has to be careful, again, going by your car. Again, because he doesn't want to hurt your car, because that's an insurance claim. So if snow falls onto your car, so again, if you can get your vehicles off the road, much appreciated, much appreciated. And another safety tip through here, although it's hard at times. Again, when the snow plow guy is going by your road or your driveway and he's filling it in for the third or fourth time, whatever the case may be, depending on the widening and whatever happened through there, is try not to distract the operator, because he's driving a large piece of the equipment and needs to make sure he doesn't go into the ditch, he doesn't hit you, he doesn't hit things, so he needs to keep his full attention on the operating of the vehicle. So don't distract him. Again, if you have a concern with what the operator did, contact the contractor directly. So again, he can mention that whatever the issue is, he can discuss it with his operators and let all of his operators know what the issue was. And snow contractor's number is 738-2230. So give them a call, leave a message, and they can review what happened. So that would be good. So as I said, don't distract the actual operator operating the snowplow truck. Let him concentrate on his driving, and then if there's an issue, report it. And again, tips, and again, we put those again, but again, the catch basins, they do get covered with snow and ice. We can't get to everyone at the same time, but I guess if you're in an area susceptible to like flooding, and you know if that catch basin up above, if it gets blocked, it comes into your driveway. It'd be much appreciated if you would open that up and keep it open. But again, if you're not able to, contact the town, we'll look after that. But again, it's not something that we can necessarily tackle in the middle of a storm. It just has to go on, and then when time allows, look after that. But yeah, any help through all of these things would be much appreciated. So a quick summary, originally, when the item went out to the public in the first time was we were looking at proposing the change of the priority 3 streets, changing that from 8 centimeter depth to 10. So that's what was originally proposed. The report has been changed now for part of the recommendation, if that continues, and to change the plowing depth for municipal properties from 8 down to 4. So again, that would increase the surface on that. And the change in the description on the surface level on sidewalks is just that, statement that during a storm event, the sidewalks are not safe. We do plow and move snow off. It's to put snow on, but until the plow finishes its last plow on the road, plowing snow onto the sidewalk, we can't get them safe. And again, just on the salt, because it's a question that comes up all the time, is that we are a salt only application. And again, with that, when it gets cold, then we'll use sand. But again, with the sand, I guess why we do it is sand has no chemical properties. It doesn't melt. It doesn't do anything other than remain on the street. Flows into storm sewers, fills up that, eventually ends up into the river. In the springtime, I get a number of calls because there's sand on the hills. The motorcycles are sliding because they're ball bearings. Like, there's a lot of issues that go with sand. Now, when the temperature's cold and it won't melt the ice, and the sand becomes a little bit of traction until it warms up and the salt can work, that's great. But is it on a main application? Again, we try not to put that much sand out there because again, it stays on the road. It's in the gutters, goes into the storm sewer. We have our street sweeping to pick that up, and so I guess that's where we go with that. And the recommendation, I believe, Your Worship, you read that. So that's what the recommendation is to leave the depth of snow before plowing on local streets at 8 centimeters, which currently in the plan has been, to change the plowing depth for municipal properties in use during a storm event to 4 centimeters, and to change in the description of the surface level on sidewalks, which is I read earlier. And again, just like a statement, just to remind people that during a storm event, the sidewalks cannot be considered safe.
Thank you, Bruce. That was,
all right. Well, thank you, Your Worship.
That was very, very thorough. I appreciate you taking the time to put that together for us and everybody that's watching. Before I open it up to questions, I just wanted to thank all of the residents for the amazing engagement on this issue, on this request for consultation, getting over 120 responses with their comments and opinions and recommendations. It's actually really amazing. That's democracy at work, and thank you for your participation in the civic process. I know we all ran on increased transparency and communication, and it seems to be working. So I really have to thank the residents of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield for their engagement on this particular item. I see some hands up, and I'll go to Councillor Day first, and then to Councillor McIntosh Lawrence next.
All right, Bruce. And to the citizens, I was doing some research, and I found out we're one of the few communities that has a snow plow control plan and having public input. And I would like to compliment town staff, because this isn't the first time we've done this. I don't know if it's because of the weather we've had that really ignited a lot of comments and concerns, but I have some concerns. First of all, I'd like to let everyone know ABL, who is our snow plow operator, has operated within this community for 13 years. This is the first year we've had problems. And if you think of what's been happening with our pandemic and everything else, He's had mechanical breakdown because of the different types of snow we've had. When you have snow that goes from minus cold to warm, and then you have rain on top of it, it is very hard on their equipment. He knows our concerns, and he knows that we've been very concerned about the level of service provided. So I'm going to be watching over the next couple of storms. I understand we're going to get hit tomorrow and then again on the weekend. And to see if he's able to meet the requirements. And then we will deal with that step by step. And I'd like to thank the mayor and our CAO and Bruce for dealing with the situation right up front and getting the communication out as to what was happening and why in this community the roads weren't like what we expect. I remember many a nights coming home from the hospital in the middle of a snowstorm, and the roads were terrible till I got to Grand Bay. And then I'd almost sing the Hallelujah chorus because I knew I was going to get home safe and sound. Now, Bruce, I've got two concerns with this plan. And so what I would like to do, when I finish these two concerns, I would like to amend the motion that I agreed to move. The first thing is we have 3 streets, and we live on a hill, side of a mountain. And we have 3 areas which are treacherous because of the ice situation. Now, we need to deal with that differently. We've talked about it for many years about how we were going to deal with them, and we're still got the problem. And the issue I have, and the reason I'm bringing this up, is because of risk management. We know it's an issue. We aren't doing anything really about it. But so for tomorrow, Stephanie comes down that Valley View Drive, and there's about 335 feet or something like that, which we know is in the shade of the trees, and it's full of ice. And unfortunately, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence can't stop. And there's a vehicle coming across Woolastock, and she smacks into it. I'm going to tell you, I'll be really, really irate if I lose Councillor McIntosh Lawrence off this committee because of that. And the other thing I'll be very upset with is the vehicle we hit, she hits the back seat and kills a child, or very, very hurts them. We have a risk in this community that we're going to be liable for because we know about it. And so what I'd like to see is an appendix onto your report on those 3 areas, and that you're going to do similar to what Gary Clark does during the summer. You're going to monitor there and put sand down sand and salt. Oh, Bruce, don't try to fudge the whole lady on this one, because I've learned so much about sand and what every community does, not only in this region, but in other parts of the province in Canada. And I've had the best education on sand. So I'm going to say on those 3 areas, they should be inspected and this mixture of salt and sand put down before we end up in a lawsuit and we have people hurt. And those 3 areas are the only 3 areas I'm talking about. I'm not talking about putting sand all over the community. No, I agree with you. It ends up in the drain, then we got problems with the sewage treatment system. And then in the spring, we have all the residents in an uproar because they go to stop and they can't stop because they got sand under their tires. And then they're at you and us as councillors as to when are they coming to sweep the streets. This is a no-win situation. I know that. We don't want to be like the province where they put sand on the secondary roads and then the sand builds up along the side of the road and nobody sweeps it down. And where does the water collect? On this road. And that's why they're having major problems in the province with the roads breaking down. We don't want that. But we have 3 specific areas that need to be addressed. And for once and for all, because we all know those 3 areas, it has to be dealt with. End of discussion. And the second thing I'm going to bring up is the bus stops for children. Now, last year, I received numerous emails and Facebook messages from someone about the children having to stand on the street in winter waiting for their bus and how unsafe it was. So I would like to see another appendix on the back of this report identifying where the bus stops are so that the plow people can get them plowed out and we don't have kids in compromising situations waiting for the bus for their school. And what my further suggestion is, if your worship and the rest of council agrees, that I would like to see this 2 appendices to us by Wednesday evening at the latest, so we can do an email poll and yay or nay it on these, just specifically on these 2 appendices, so we can have it back to you on Thursday so that you can move ahead on Friday with all the documents and everything to get this contract out.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Day's amendment? And then we can open it up for further discussion.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. So we have an amended motion on the table. The original motion with the 2 amendments regarding the hills and the bus stops. Are you talking about the bus stops on Narrapis Road, Beth?
I don't know exactly which ones, but Bruce got the documents that I sent a year ago about this, and I think it is the Narrapis.
All right. Stephanie, you had your hand up.
Bev basically voiced my concerns as well about the hills and maybe using some different language specifically for the hills and sanding. I understand the salt and the science behind it and why we use it to -13 and then sand after, but in reality, sometimes that doesn't seem to work. I find like when I'm coming down Valley View and it's just been salted, which in theory should work, but I can't help feeling that if it was sanded, it would be a bit safer. That maybe it's not in reality, but I feel like it would be. And my other question was I think you mentioned this, Bruce, but whose responsibility are the storm drains? Is it the towns or the residents?
The responsibility of the storm drains is the town, is because they're on the municipal right of way. But if a resident knows that there's a problem or there's an issue, feel free to contact me, the town, and bring that to our attention. Yeah, we'll look after it.
Thank you. And I also wanted to echo the mayor's comments and Councillor Day's comments about the residents responding to this snow and ice plan. And I was happy to see the number of responses, and I was happy to hear that your comments were heard and they're being recommended for implementation. So keep sending comments. We do hear them, we do listen, and we try to do something about it. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Deputy Mayor Toole, do you have any comments on the motion as amended by Councillor Day?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I did have, my comment was centered around the salt sand issue, so thank you, Councillor Day, for putting that amendment out. I wasn't sure how to deal with it. I was going to request that there be some sort of risk analysis or something done, especially on the hills, to figure out if it's, if the pain in the butt, I guess, in the spring of cleaning it up is overtakes the risk factor of having slippery hills all winter. So I think it's a good solution. I don't know. I know this is going out for tender, so I'm not sure if the appendix is the right way, but I'm sure Bruce will figure it out. But thank you, Councillor Day, for that, because that was my main question. I had another quick one for the Works Commissioner. Just wondering about, you were talking about the level of service out there. I know it's comments from residents where some of the proposals were changed back. Are there any improvements, the current level of service being, like from what we have now being proposed in this for what's going out to tender? Like, are there any, is it the same, or is there improvements from what we currently have?
On the contractor side, the contract would be the same for their service level. The improvement that was put in would be for the Works Department.
Okay.
For our fire station 1 and 2. So there was an improvement there, but that was for the Works Department. But for the contractor in our roads, the service level or the standard would be the same.
Would be the same.
As to what we currently have in there.
And from what I understand, it's not so much the service level that's been the result, that the residents, all the comments that received were not so much on the service level, but on the actual operational, like how it was being implemented. So I just, I guess that's kind of, they've been, one of the messages I've received, and from what I've seen, that's been a bit mixed up, but this current service level, I think people haven't had issues with, in that Councillor Day had been saying in years past, it's always been okay. It's basically the operational, how the actual contractor's been working this year and some of the problems they've had. So it's operationally, I guess, trying to give us that level of service, and hasn't been achieved. So I'm wondering if there's a way that, you said all the majority of the comments that came in from residents were operational issues, and they're going to be addressed in the tender going out, but have they been relayed on to ABL? Is that been, because we don't have an idea of kind of what, we've all received our own comments, I know, from residents, but just making sure that their operational issues on the current contractor have been relayed back to them.
Yes, depending on what the comment was, yes, it has been relayed back to them. Yes.
Okay.
And again, the residents themselves are able to contact ABL directly. But yes, ones that I've seen that require sort of additional action or whatever have been passed along.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure that we kind of mark those to see if it happens again, if we're getting the same comments and the same concerns, that there's something that we might need to elevate. So that's good to know. I guess the only other thing I wanted to mention is I really liked the tips for the public document that you had and that you presented to us. I thought that was really helpful. And I know you were mentioning it was sent out in the fall and it is available on the website, but I'm wondering if we can maybe have another news blast or press release or some notification out there so people do have that, because we want to make sure that they know the snow control number, they know who to call and when to call and why to call. But also, if they have these tips, it might answer some of their questions at the forefront and help out. So maybe kind of resending that around might be useful, because I found it a useful document as well.
I'm going to just nod to the deputy CAO and think that we could do like a social media thing out there. I'm assuming we can make that happen.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Aaron. There are a number of hands up. First, Troy, then Councillor Balcom, and then Councillor Day again. Again, just a reminder, we're talking on the amended motion. Troy, you're up.
Yeah, sure. So thank you. First off, on the social media side for the tips, that is in a plan. That we'll start seeing that in the next short time frame. Obviously, the goal here is to come up with the best plan that we can come up with and put into place ahead of going to tender for the service. The one concern I have with the amendment on the motion is that time frame of basically one and a half days worth of work. If Bruce is 100% comfortable with that, I'm comfortable with it. But my concern is, I think there's a lot of factors, and there's facts that need to be confirmed, I guess, and backed up in the application of sand. Sand may not be the exact solution. So if we're looking to increase the level of service on these hills, I'm fearful that we just say, okay, sand is the answer. Because, in addition to what the Works Commissioner was saying, the sand might help that particular day when it's icy, but, the majority of winter, the hills are not icy. And then that sand basically becomes the equivalent of ice trying to stop on a steep hill. So I think, do we want to be careful there? So I want to make sure that the Works Commissioner has the time that he needs. And that day, that'd be my only question at this point, is if that day and a half will be enough time for him to do it.
Your Worship, why I was thinking if it was looked at on a regular basis, like Gary does with his team to monitor playgrounds, then a mixture of salt and sand would only be used when we require it.
Right.
And that would be the only time. And by the way, this is already happening out in Chris Pam says on a couple of streets that they've got. Similar situations where the sun doesn't hit the ice. And sorry, Jim, to jump in, but I wanted to make sure that they realize that I'm just not talking about sand, because I don't want fleas in people's houses and then we'll have another issue.
Yeah.
But this is a mixture, and I'm only talking about putting it down in those particular areas and monitoring them. And we don't want to build up salt or sand in them, because you know and I know if you build up salt in snow, or sand in snow, it's not going to do anything. But it's the mornings when you come down where you hit that shaded spot and it's a sheet of ice.
Yeah.
And one of these days we're going to have an accident, and I'm sorry, but I don't want to be receiving all kinds of court, and I'm trying to think of words, sorry, but I mean, we don't need this. We know there's an issue. Let's deal with it.
So Councillor Day, and Troy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Troy, you were referring to the Wednesday deadline in order for the details of the appendices to be sent to council in an email poll. Am I correct or incorrect in what you were trying to convey?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so maybe not Wednesday, but soon enough for the research to be done, but also in time for us to have the plan adopted in a order to have it go to tender in a timely fashion.
Yeah, it'll absolutely be as soon as humanly possible. It'd just be a matter of making sure that we don't cut ourselves short on time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Balcom, you are next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question for the Works Commissioner. We're talking salt and we're talking sand. Am I correct in assuming that DOT and other communities do never use 100% sand? There's always a sand-salt mixture, which is to an industry standard?
There's always a mixture of sand, salt, and that industry standard, there isn't one.
And Jim, what I was told today by someone who worked in DTI is that on the main highways, they put salt. I'm going to get confused here with the two S's. They put salt down, and at certain times following the same kind of things we have in our plan, they would use salt and sand. On the secondary roads, they're using almost 100% sand, and the sand is building up on the side of the roads, and that's why we're ending up watching and seeing the water staying on the roads, because it doesn't run into the ditch like it used to.
Thank you, Bev.
So I've had a really interesting couple of days. I never thought.
Sorry, but it's Councillor Balcom. Did that answer your question?
Yes, partially, about 85%. I was under the understanding that no community puts down only pure sand, that it has to be a mix for clumping reasons and other things.
Yeah.
So I just want us to be certain that if we're going to be maybe amending our procedures and all that, that we be very all clear in what the definition of sand is from us, from our perspective, and also what the definition of salt is.
And I would like to add to that it's a sand and salt mixture, because the salt will melt the ice and the sand sort of provides some grip, but you don't keep plying it onto the situation with just sand.
Thank you, Councillor Day. I see our Works Commissioner has his hand up. Bruce?
Yeah, just a couple comments going through, and again, just with Councillor Balcom. Yeah, there's always a little bit of salt in the sand, or the sand will just freeze into a lump and you won't be able to load it. And again, for the town, I don't see any application where I would just do straight sand. There's only one possibly if down the future there's a well contamination possibility, and even then it would be sand with a little bit of salt, just so the pile doesn't freeze. It may not be high concentration, but I don't ever see really a straight use of sand. I'm not saying that would be applicable on that one. Okay, just back, Councillor Day, if you could assist me there in your question. You mentioned 4 areas, and I understood Valley View, so I'm aware of that.
There's 2 other ones, Bruce, but I'm not right off the. Does somebody else remember the 2 other areas?
So probably Park and Beverly Hills. Is that the?
Yes.
And
I'm
possibly
wondering
June.
about June.
What about Garden?
Garden Street.
Okay, I should have stopped at 4. Now we got 5. Hills. Yes. So again with that, because we are getting into hills and into a large, like everything is different, that Wednesday timeline wouldn't be reasonable. I wouldn't be able to get a
All
review.
right. Well, I was just trying to be helpful.
Yep.
And the thing is that I have no problem passing the motion, knowing that we're going to have these 2 amendments coming, appendixes.
And again, that was the other part, is that depending on how the review goes on this here, these would be special sites.
Yes.
That, okay, on here, because again, the big thing with this, or I shouldn't say a big thing, is, as you mentioned out in other areas, people inspect and do a daily thing. The question is who? So that's all part of the review that I'll have to go through as to whether it's something that we're doing internally or it's something that we put in the tender for the next, they need to do that. But yeah, so again, if you pass the plan as it is with the note, okay, we want more information regarding the hills for the special applications site specific,
yes,
then I can do that site specific and include that into the comment, because we still have a little bit of time before we need to go to tender.
Perfect.
But we need to start going.
The other thing, Bruce, is AVL used to provide counsel in the snow reports a monthly breakdown of what the weather was like every day and what they had to do in the whole 9 yards. That's the kind of thing I'm thinking of at these. I think we're up to 5 now. No, I'm not going any further, Bruce. But that's the kind of thing. Did somebody check it? What time was it? Did you have to put sand or salt down, or salt and sand? I'm getting confused now. But so that down the road, if one of us came or we had an issue, we could say to you on Valley View, what's going on? And if you come back and say, well, this is the times it was checked, we only put sand and salt down once, then we know what's going on and we can deal with the residents that are calling us. And so I think that would be something to look at. But I'll leave it with you.
It could be something that we could look at in the plan, and I'll discuss with John, because again, we're into procedurally, right, how that's going. So that'll be something that I can discuss with John as we go through, is procedurally, how does that all handle,
Right.
or track?
That's more operations, I would think, for sure. So thank you, Councillor Day. Thank you, Bruce. Do we have any more questions or comments on the motion as is amended by Councillor Day? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Bruce. I know you've worked very hard on getting all of this information together, and your presentation was really, really excellent. So I appreciate that, and I know the residents do as well. So I guess we are on to 11A, new business recommendations. 11A, human resources support. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield authorize the CAO to enter into an agreement with HR Downloads. And do I have a motion? Deputy Mayor Toole, thank you. Councillor Balcom, second, thank you. Troy, if I could get you to speak to this item, please.
Sure. So this is recommended to the CAO. It's primarily a website-based thing, but there's also a phone service. So And it covers basically anything to do with HR where we don't have a dedicated HR team within the town being with our size. It provides staff with the needed resources to deal with any HR issues that come up, as well as just simple preventative measures. There's lots of training components to it, whether it be the safety or simply drafting job descriptions. And then, as I say, there's a phone service where if you have any HR issues, a staff member can call into the toll-free number and talk to an HR expert. And this is for a 2-year term.
Thank you, Troy. Do we have any questions for Troy on the motion? I just want to mention that we're spending a lot of time. Oh, sorry, Councillor Day, I didn't see your hand. Sorry. Oh, and then we get 2 hands up.
I know you were hoping I was going to stay muted. As if someone who has an HR certificate, I only wish when I was working that we would have had something like this to call and get resources on. So I think this is a huge asset for our team. And I think it's wonderful.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Deputy Mayor Toole?
Thanks, Your Worship. I just want to mention that my pillar, I guess, as a councillor is organizational capacity. And so in that, as the champion, John, the CAO, did bring this to my attention and spoke to me about it. And he's quite excited about it. And as Troy described, it has a lot of resources. And for a town that's not large enough to have an HR office, this basically is an online HR office. And it's a really good tool. So I think Troy and John will get a lot of good value out of it. And I fully support it.
Thank you, Erin. Do we have any more questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, Council. This will help elevate our capacity for the leadership team. I'm very happy you supported that motion, so thank you. Item 11B, Sculpture St. John 2022 Council Appointment. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield appoint Maureen Boone as the representative on behalf of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield for Sculpture St. John 2022. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Do we have a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Any questions or comments on the motion?
Maureen's been a huge, huge help with this sculpture projects over the years. And I was so delighted when I saw that she had reoffered, and she's going to be really good for our community.
Thank you, Councillor Day. I echo those sentiments. Maureen is she's a huge champion for the arts, and she's been involved in Sculpture St. John, I think, from its inception. And we're very lucky to have her as our representative on the committee. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Item C, age-friendly committee terms of reference. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield accept the age-friendly committee terms of reference as presented. May I have a motion?
Moved.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Do we have a second? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence, thank you. Councillor Day, as the council rep on the age-friendly committee, if you could tell the people watching a little bit about the item before us.
We've already brought the terms of reference for our committee to council just before Christmas, in fact, and we already have an amendment for it, and that's what this is. And it was just at the end of it, just I think a sentence.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Day. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. 11D, Junior Achievement Annual Request. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield donate $300 to Junior Achievement NB. May I have a motion, please? Thank you. Deputy Mayor Toole, do I have a second? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence, thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. I just want to comment that junior achievement has been around for a long time. I was a JA kid when I was in high school, and I'm just pleased to see the program still going. And in fact, it's in schools all over the place as a part of the curriculum. And I'm very pleased that we're able to support a program like this that teaches entrepreneurship and business skills to the kids in our schools. So, item E, Apple Hill Road. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield refer this back to administration to report back to Council for the meeting scheduled on February 28th, 2022. We have a motion. Councillor Day, thank you. Do we have a second? Councillor Belcom, thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Belcom?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment. Resident Mr. David McLeod, I met with him at his request later on in the summertime and again in the fall once snow had come down. And he expressed a little bit of dissatisfaction that when the Apple Hill Road was repaired this summer, he was very happy with the repair, but it stopped short where the property line with the town was emblazoned with orange paint. And at the time, he felt that the greatest damage to the road was being done basically on his property, which is really an extension of Apple Hill Road, but not, I guess, on paper as being actual town property, maybe just an easement. And I saw firsthand where the effects of especially the large loader that comes up and moves the snow actually goes onto their property, stops, turns, stops again, and that's where he believes a lot of the damage that is being done. So there was a great crater that was there, and he was kind of disappointed that wasn't fixed and repaired at the same time. So I asked him what a good resolution would be, and he said that he was pretty certain he and his neighbor would donate, transfer ownership at no cost to themselves, the land to the town to make that part of the Apple Hill Road proper. So he put that in writing, and I said that it would be great, and I would bring it forth to full council for discussion and for Works Commissioner to investigate.
Thank you for that comment, Councillor Balcom, and so we'll refer that to staff as the motion indicates, and we'll get a full report back on February 28th. So thank you for that. I'm sure Mr. McLeod appreciates your responsiveness to his concerns. Do we have any other questions or comments on the motion?
The problem with this situation has been the town didn't own the land, but if they're willing to give it to us, well, we can fix it, no problem, because then it's no longer private land. And unfortunately, we can't go on private land and do things.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Do we have any other questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. We're on to 11F, Sewerage Utility Accounts Receivable, fourth quarter 2021. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield receive and file sewerage utility accounts receivable as at December 31st, 2021. May I have a motion, please? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence, thank you. Do we have a second? Deputy Mayor Toole, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Item 11G, Local Economic Development Strategic Plan. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield adopt the Economic Development Action Plan. May I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Balcom. May I have a second?
No.
Thank you, Councillor Bellmans. As the motioner, Councillor Balcom, I'd ask you to speak on the motion, please. Oh, you're muted, Jim.
Wrong button,
Well done,
Your Worship.
Natalie.
Wrong bar. I guess we all have that mute function that I'm pleased to both move this motion, and also will be supporting the vote when it comes. The presentation that was made by EVP and Chris Steele today, I made a lot of my comments during after his presentation. Economic development is not a one-time, one-year event. It's a mindset, and Chris clearly identified that it's a long-term commitment. I think we're on the right track. I know we're on the right track. He's identified our action plans. Again, I just want to say it isn't just our plan. We are a small component. We have a responsibility to provide the right tools for Envision St. John, which are the experts. So by adopting this economic development action plan, we can get started on those gaps that are missing, and in the action plan items that Chris Steele has identified. And I am confident that some of those can very quickly be addressed, I hope, by a new communications officer as well, with help from our CAO and anybody else, myself included. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. We have any other questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, Council. It's as Chris Steele said and Councillor Balcom echoed, where it's going to require some dedicated and sustained energy to take the plan from inception to completion, and I look forward to beginning that journey. Item 12, bills for payment. That the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield authorize the January 24th, 2022 bills for payment as presented in the amount of $534,958.47. May I have a motion, please? Councillor Day, thank you. May I have a second, please? Thank you, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion? See Councillor Balcom.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have two expenditure items I'd just like to have some clarification on. They're not large amounts, but it would be nice to know. I'd like to know what we're doing it for, and for the bigger picture. The first is expenditure item number 36, bucket truck rental, $1,035 and change. My question is this for the installation and the removal of our annual Christmas lights at the cenotaph? And is that for just the installation, or the installation and the taking down? And or is it for something else?
Troy?
Yes, sorry. Yes, I'm going to actually defer this one to the Works Commissioner. We did actually have a conversation with this earlier, and I don't want to give the wrong answer because I'm not remembering 100%. I know it wasn't the cenotaph, it was actually related to the antique lights, I believe, but I'll let Bruce step in.
Yes, you're right there, Troy. Yes, that was, there was two items that was looked after through that. Is the removal of the wreaths on the antique lights. It was part one, and part two was the crosswalk light up there across from Starkey's. The one on the west side wasn't working, so they made that repair on that. So it was so one invoice, but two jobs were looked after.
Thank you, Bruce. That's it. And that's is that both your questions, Jim? You're on mute.
Thank you. Expenditure item number 54, water sampling, payee is St. John Laboratory Services. I'm assuming that it's not water sampling, it's actually sewerage sampling. That's my assumption anyway. So I'd like to know what we're actually testing for in that. Is it organics, inorganics, bacterial oxygen demand, something else? And recently we've seen in the news where there's been Canadian technology that has been identified and is being tested in different communities, where in the sewerage a community's health with respect to COVID exposure and COVID incidents, there may be a correlation. So I'm just wondering, have we been approached to see if we would be part of that sampling?
Yeah, so on the COVID side, I will say that isn't quite what this is for. We have heard of that before. Some municipalities were doing that. I'm not sure if it's still a common practice, but I know in earlier days, they were using it as a measurement tool to estimate how many people in the community may indeed be fighting COVID without, the full testing numbers to kind of see if they match up. In this particular case, this testing is actually just our routine thing. It's a little higher than maybe that normally will because it's actually three different items into one. So one is the regular potable water testing we do in all of the municipal buildings. That was the bulk of it. That was around $800 of that. And then there was also some testing of Henderson Brook for salt content as it runs by the salt shed and then out in the river. And then the final one was just a regular monthly testing for the lagoon.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. Thank you, Troy. We have any more questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Item 13, consent agenda. Item 13A, Entity 51, Transition Facilitator Restructuring. B, Entity 51, Transition Facilitator Regional Service Commission. Item C, Entity 51 Map. Item D, AFC November minutes. Item E, AFC December minutes. Item F, AFC resignation. G, Portage Atlantic. Item H, NB Leaching advertising. Item I, Cascade admin reports, including monthly council report, CAO progress report, and council resolution/directions. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield receive and file the consent agenda items for January 24th, 2022. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. And is that you second, John? Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Thank you very much. I just would like to take a moment and recognize Ann Daigle, who was our AFC member who resigned recently because she's busy doing other things. And I want to thank her for her service to the Age Friendly Committee. She's a great community member who's given a lot of her time and her effort over many years to many different initiatives. And I just want to express my appreciation to Ann for everything that she's done for the town of Grand Bay-Westfield and people who live here. Item 14, council reports. Let's start with Councillor Balcom tonight.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing too much to report, Your Worship. Our January meeting of PAC was canceled, so nothing to report on that, but the next one is scheduled in February. I did not attend the last online session, the third and final session of the Inherent Bias and Inclusiveness Training through Dialogue New Brunswick. There was a shortage of positions, so I will look forward to the next round and complete my training, online training in that, whenever that may be. I'm still working away slowly at the online Indigenous training that I think all council is. And I'm extremely excited after having heard the report from EBB and Chris Steele, and as well as the letter that we received from Envision St. John's CEO, their beliefs that what was identified in that plan is in parallel and in sync with what Envision St. John is working on the bigger picture. So I'm very excited about getting to work and pulling up my bootstraps on that, hopefully with the communications officer. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. Deputy Mayor Toole.
Thank you, Your Worship. Like Councillor Balcom, not too heavy things to report. But I did want to mention that I'm still participating with the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick, the Local Governance Reform Committee, which meets bi-weekly, and it's an excellent committee, an excellent resource. So we can try to figure out, I guess, unravel as best we can what's going on here with the province with local governance reform. So just to let everyone know, we are still working diligently to be on top of things, which is great. And I just have one quick note to add. I just wanted to bring back to your worship your comments at the beginning about home hardware and about the switchover of ownership, and I just wanted to add my name to your list of homeowners that were helped. And I had not a flooding situation, but roof tiles in a windstorm, and called to Home Hardware when there was a tar put outside for me in the middle of COVID. Don't need to pay, call when you can, and we'll settle it later. And it was just made a horrible time a lot easier. And I know a lot of people have had similar experiences. So I just wanted to put my name in with that. Thank you, Kyle, as well.
Thank you, Erin. Councillor Bailmans.
Nothing to report this week.
Thanks, John. Councillor Day.
I had the opportunity to attend the cognitive diversity workshop. I really enjoyed it, and I found it really complemented some of the other programs and one that I teach on personality colors. And I hope that we're able to share what comes out of these, because when you realize why people do what they do and it's part of their makeup, then they're no longer bothering you. And there are some people in this world that are detailed orientated, and I love having them on a team because it makes diversity. And I'm certainly not detailed orientated. I like big picture and speed. And so that was really, really a well done, really good workshop. Age friendly, we're going to be putting a call out since we've had Ann Daigle decide that she'd like to do other things in life, and she's got us to a place where we're really moving forward on our own. We're going to need some more volunteers to help. So we will be putting out a call to the community for volunteers to work on our committee. We're also in the midst of reapplying for certification, and I'd like to do a hats off to Dave Sheaves and Annie, and I'm trying to think of how to say her last name, but the two of them have been really helpful in trying to get this all pulled together so that we can get the recertification as an age-friendly community. I had a phone call this past week by a former deputy mayor, and it was really nice talking to them, who had a concern on the photos, the old photos, that the Telegraph Journal is using on our community in the paper. And so I'm hoping with the new communications officer that they can get their stock of pictures for this community upgraded, and that we're using some of the new signs, and maybe they might want to do an article with the Telegraph Journal about all our new branding and all of the exciting things we've got going on in the community, and show the new signage. So that's it for me tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. Councillor McIntosh Lawrence.
Yeah, like Councillor Day, I had the opportunity to attend the third and final workshop from put on by Dialogue New Brunswick on cognitive diversity. And yeah, I agree. It was very informative. It allows you to see why some groups work and some groups don't. So I would be interested to see if once all of council and staff does it, if we can pool our results. And because I think we work well together, so I would be interested to see if we have, there are 4 different areas. So it would be interesting to see if we have representation for all those areas, because that means that you have a well-rounded group and that you would work well together. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. The other thing, we had a Fundy Regional Community Network meeting, and again, we're still, the only thing that we're currently doing is dial a ride. it was interesting in December, there were probably 25 to 30 calls for help, but there were none from the Grand Bay area. So I would just like to put out again the number if we have a dispatcher, and the number to call is 349-8551, and maybe I'll see if it can be put on the town page as well. Or the website is nbcommunitytransit.com. So if anyone needs a ride to a medical appointment or groceries, right now because of COVID and a lack of volunteers, that's the only thing that we're offering. So medical appointments and food. If you need help with that, getting to those appointments and getting home, give our dispatcher a call and she can help you out. And the last thing is we're continuing to work on Family Day at the golf course, and the formal poster info about that will be out later this week. So keep an eye out for that.
Thank you, Stephanie. That's you guys have all been really busy, and I appreciate all the work that you're doing on behalf of the town and the residents, and making the place a, like Bev said, an exciting place to be. You know, I over and above the usual stuff that I spend my time doing. I had some highlights. I had several meetings on local government reform, working with the Department of Environment and Local Government, and working with our MLA Speaker Bill Oliver. So we're working through that process. I had some community meetings. I had one meeting with a representative from Prude regarding a women in leadership study that they're planning on rolling out. And that's going to be exciting. It's going to be researching all kinds of women women from all different walks of life, and finding out what their barriers to leadership positions are, both in the political, the business, and the nonprofit sphere. So that's going to be an interesting process to be involved in. I had a meeting with Junior Achievement, and they've asked me to do a speaking series with some of our schools here in the Grand Bay-Westfield area, and possibly in the Greater St. John region as well. And again, it's about leadership. So I'm excited to have the opportunity to talk about what it takes and what's involved in being in a leadership position. I had, and this is not my favorite thing to do, but it was still kind of fun. I was asked to film a video greeting on behalf of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield for the Chinese Cultural Association in recognition of Chinese New Year, which is coming up here very, very soon. The media stuff isn't my favorite, but I was thrilled to be asked to bring greetings from the town. That was really kind of special. I've been involved in some of the equity, diversity, and inclusion training as well, put on by Dialogue NB, and it's just been fascinating. The one that I've been able to take so far is mitigating unconscious bias, and those are skills that will go far, I think, in working with people. And everybody has the unconscious biases, and you just have to assume they're there. And this training is giving us tools to deal with those. I'm on the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick. I always have trouble with it, whether it's the acronym or the actual words. The Public Safety Committee. We met briefly last month. We have another meeting on Monday, and we're talking about all kinds of different things, not the least the future of the RCMP in New Brunswick for regional policing. So I'll have more information and an update once we have that meeting next week. And on the fun side of things, I'm working with Councillor McIntosh Lawrence and staff on a town planned Family Day event. So there'll be more information coming out about that soon. And, COVID restrictions willing, we'll have a really fun day planned for everybody on Family Day. So that's all I have for you today. So we have all our council reports done. And by the way, guys, I really appreciate you all taking the time to tell everybody what you're up to and just sharing your experiences and the work that you're doing. So I appreciate that. Item 15, business arising from committee of the whole. There being none, we'll move on to item 16, adjournment. And the motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay Westfield adjourn the meeting at 9:01 p.m. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Do I have a second? Councillor McIntosh Lawrence, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Your motion is carried. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff. I know it was a long meeting tonight. There was a lot going on, and I appreciate the work that both the leadership team and council do in getting things done and the work move forward. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Night.